nosy or unfair. I'm just doing it because it's my job, right? Usually when you do a job, the implication is that you're getting paid, that you're receiving some sort of compensation for it, right? So now that Kim has come out and said that she received nothing, only, her cleaning lady bill being paid by David, like that doesn't really constitute a job. Like it doesn't seem like that's like there's a job agreement or some sort of thing like that. It doesn't really make sense to me, right? So I have to, before I run with that fully, I have to say I believe her, but I need to verify. I need to verify that information for sure, because I'm not sure if it's fully accurate. But that's what Kim said on the podcast. Anyways, so David is saying that now, he's going to pursue some sort of legal action. I don't know if it's in regards to that in particular, but he says that there's a lot of lies that are being spewed about him online when it comes to the separation with Kim. And now, everything that, they were saying, like she was saying, because he hasn't spoken yet, but she was saying it was amicable, that she didn't really want to trash him or anything like that. But I don't think it's amicable because they don't even follow each other on social media anymore. So I don't know who unfollowed who first, but it doesn't seem like it's an amicable podcast divorce, I should say. And another thing that I have to say when it comes to this is that Kim said to the ladies, to the girls on the podcast, she said that there were a few instances where I guess he said something that she didn't like or did not feel respected, and that she was not going to get into it right now. She wanted to keep things peaceful. So she didn't say what those things were. But one thing I have to say, at first they were like fun together. Like I remember like when David was, like a couple years ago, like he seemed to be really listening to her and she was listening to him. And he was kind of softer too, right? He was like a little bit nicer, I would say, like to her and even to the people he was talking about or the cast or things like that. He didn't really seem like he had like that big of a problem with Melissa. I find like this is something that he has developed like recently. It's more hateful at times, right? Some of the stuff that he says. So anyways, but there's a few things that I remember just from listening. I was like, okay, why is he talking to her like that? Like he would say to her, like, you need to earn your keep, right? What does that mean? I thought she wasn't getting paid, right? And another thing he would say like very often to her face, like a lot of the times, Kim, when you speak, I don't even pay attention. Like, like I'm not focused on what you're saying because, you talk a lot. And even on his other shows at times, whenever he would speak about New Jersey or Kim, some of the ones that I've caught, he said that he doesn't listen to what she says most of the times. He tunes out. And it's almost like he was proud of saying that like a few times. So, and the dogs, like, she has a lot of dogs and they bark or sometimes they jump in. And, a lot of you guys are like dog lovers. So you like and enjoy seeing her little puppies come on. But, he seemed visibly annoyed. Like, from what I could see, he seemed visibly annoyed sometimes too, like that whole scene, right? He was just kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm talking to you about something important here. Like, can you get the dogs out, right? He would do things like that, right? So I think the dogs and, another thing is, that whole C word debacle, right? Everybody talked about it extensively. Everybody knows what he called Melissa Gorga. I was not happy about that. I know a lot of people were not. I thought it was definitely crossing a line. I'm not coming for anyone. You can have your camp, that camp. I don't care. We can throw fun shade at each other, shady shade. But when it starts to get dark, that's when I'm just like, that's not fun, right? And I thought he crossed the line. And the only thing that he could have just done was just to apologize. That has always been my position. I think that he should have just said, on my podcast, I called Melissa a really bad word. Yes, it was behind the paywall because I don't think that was on YouTube. It was in his Patreon. I've never seen it on YouTube, although some people have shared it online, but only the audio part. I've never seen the video. So that just tells me that it was most likely on his Patreon. And that's another thing too. If you're going to insult somebody, don't insult them behind your paywall. Just insult. If you want to insult somebody, just say it to their face, right? If you're not scared, if you're like, if you mean what you say, you should be able to just do it and not hide behind a paywall. I don't respect that. I have to say that. And it's not to throw any shade at him. And that's the reason why, guys, a lot of the things, and I've said this, I don't call men the B word. I don't call them princesses. I don't call them Josephine and all of that stuff. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, if you wouldn't say it to somebody to their face, but you feel comfortable doing it like on your podcast, that's one thing. But I don't know. I don't know if all these people that are saying these things, if they would be that comfortable saying that to Joe Gorga, to his face, I don't think that would happen. And I'm not saying that Joe is going to do anything. I just don't think that they would. I just don't think that they would have the courage to do that, right? So, we're supposed to have a certain level of social grace, right? Social graces. So I think we should have we should have the same behavior on our podcast. That's just my opinion. But anyways, back to David and Kim. Okay, that was a long sidebar, guys. Back to David and Kim. So Kim and David have parted ways. Kim no longer follows David. David no longer follows Kim. Kim has gone on the girls' podcast, and now they've made up. She says, I'm here for you, girls. So whatever you want to know, I will tell you. So then they start talking about the old stuff. They go back season 4. They go back to what happened at San Cubano with Dancergate and all of that stuff. Oh my gosh. It's funny to me, I have to say, because Kim D is talking and she kind of glosses over it, and she's like, oh, I didn't really know what was going on. I just went to Penny and John's salon, and then Angelo was right there. And I think he was set up, this was set up by production. That's what she says, right? And she said she didn't really have any knowledge of him being there. But then once he introduced himself and told her who he was and how he was connected to Melissa, allegedly, then she just started asking him questions and stuff, right? And then she said that Teresa was so surprised, right? Well, I find that a little bit funny because Kim D has been on this podcast with David for over 2 years. And before she was on the podcast with David, she was on several other shows, right? Not podcasts, but she did a lot of interviews. There's a lot of footage of Kim D online on YouTube. So Kim D has said over and over and time again, she has said that Teresa knew, that she admitted that she lied at the reunion in front of Caroline and Jacqueline and said that Teresa had no knowledge of it all, but in fact that Teresa knew everything. She admitted that at some point in time, right? So she admitted to everyone. She went on Heather McDonald's podcast, Juicy Scoop. She went on another girl. I can't remember her name, but she's a YouTuber, a brunette, beautiful. I can't remember what her name was, but she gave a pretty long interview. It was 50 minutes or something, from several years ago, actually. And she said that Teresa knew everything and that she lied, that Kim D lied and protected her. So it was interesting to already see the dynamic of it all change while she was on those girls' podcasts. She was kind of oh, Teresa, she didn't really know anything, she was acting very surprised because really she did not know. So that already tells me that Kim D she's willing to change her story now, right? And I don't think that's fair because at the end of the day, Kim D has not been on the show for a lot of years, but she has been an interesting force outside of the show by doing the podcast and being the big personality that she is. And giving all of these interviews. And that's what's great and bad with the internet, is that we could always refer back to the stuff that you've said at some point in time. And if it was just like one interview or two that she gave over the years to, tell her truth when it comes to season 4, the season 4 finale with Melissa, that would be one thing. But she spent years and weeks after weeks, like, in that bathrobe with David, talking about that particular episode and how the setup and how Teresa knew everything and how she was acting like her face off, right? So I don't know. I'm not here to say or to tell people, oh, don't go and listen to her. I would never do that. Like, go and listen to her, right? But I think it does not necessarily look great on her if she decides to change her stance, because, your credibility, like when Kim D likes to say, I tell the truth, then tell the truth. The truth should not depend on if you are good with Teresa right now or if you're not. Like, the truth is the truth, right? Your perception of things may change over time. I understand that, or as you get less angry. But there's some very important facts that can never change, and that's the truth. And the fact of the matter is, if Teresa knew that Melissa was going to be set up, let's just say Teresa didn't know that that guy Angelo was going to be at the salon. Granted, I'm willing to give Kim that. But she cannot change her story and say that Teresa didn't know that Melissa was going to be set up. Because Teresa knew. She knew, and she did not warn her. She knew that. Like, everybody knew. Jacqueline knew and Teresa knew. So anyways, I thought that was interesting. And the whole story too, right? Kim D goes on and explains and says one of her friends, like one of her good